Feeling no pain. Okay. All right, the clock in the boardroom shows it's 1/2 past. So on November, I'm calling to order a special meeting of the Southeast Polk School Board of Directors for November 11th, 2020. Karen, can you call the roll? Karen, are you on the line?
Yes.
I guess I should have checked before we started.
Maybe she's muted. I don't know.
Yeah, she sounded good.
Karen, are you on the line? Yeah, I think we're good.
President Fisher, this is Kevin.
Yes.
I can resume the roll for roll call.
All right. Okay. You're pinch hitting for Karen. All right. Go ahead.
Fisher,
Yes. Here.
Crab,
Here.
Krell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Handy, Slings,
Here.
Nave.
Here.
Looks like Mr. Handy's now live. Handy,
Yeah, I thought he was on the line somewhere.
All right, I'm back. Can you hear me?
yep,
Yes.
there you go.
All right.
All
I'm
present.
back. Present, yep.
All right. Mr. Handy's present by internet. So we have a quorum. In fact, all members are present. Next item is 1B, agenda adoption. I assume there's no changes. It's sort of a short agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Adam moved and Rick was second. All right, Karen and or Kevin.
Krell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes,
Powell,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes. Next item is 1C, district vision and mission. Somebody want to do that?
I'll take it.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Southeast Polk Community School District, engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
All right, thank you. Our next item is 1D, public comments. The board has received several emails, which is fine. But if anybody would like to make a public comment to address the board, we have a couple of digital portals, I think, open and available. We'll wait a minute here and see if anybody has comments. In the meantime, board secretary, have there been any written comments submitted to you?
There have been 8 written comments submitted through the Google form.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you,
I can proceed.
okay,
First one is from Matt Beatty, address 61 Southeast 64th Street. Mr. Beatty says, "Thank you for taking my comments into consideration. I'd like to voice my opinion on how the return to learn is going in my house. I have 4 children in 3 different buildings. My kids are learning again and their mental health is finally back to normal.
all right.
Apologize, my screen is,
Oh, okay. You still with us, Kevin?
I am still with you. I'm sorry. My screen is a little frozen at the moment.
Okay.
Mr. Kurt, do you have access to the Google Sheet?
I can access it, yes.
Okay. My screen on the Google form is frozen. I cannot read them any longer.
I can see. Okay,
Well, we're off to a great
Technology.
start. Are we?
We're batting 1,000 on tech tonight.
We tempted fate with 11/11/2020, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Kevin, where did you leave off at?
That was Mr. Beatty.
Did you complete Mr. Beatty's comments or was there more?
There were more to the comments.
These kids were, their mental health.
Yeah, their mental health was that last line. That was read.
I don't think we have access to those.
Okay, so Matt Beatty, let me get this pulled up. Thank you for taking my comments into consideration. I'd like to voice my opinion on how the return to learn is going in my house. I have 4 children in 3 different buildings. My kids are learning again and their mental health is finally back to normal. Our kids are safer in school. Our building principals and staff are doing a great job keeping everyone safe. Number of positive cases are on the rise. There is no doubt that our kids are safer in school for multiple reasons. I'd ask that you please take this information into consideration when you decide where our kids are going to learn. Our kids need to be in school and I hope you will keep them there. Thank you for your time. Next one is Hannah Friend. As a staff member, I want to strongly encourage the board to consider moving back to hybrid 2 at this time. In the hybrid 2 model, we are able to get kids in school, albeit not every day, to learn in person and socialize with peers, but also keep them socially distanced and distance to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. In hybrid 1, social distancing is not possible. We are currently experiencing massive sub shortages. I work in 2 buildings and have received an email every day this week from both buildings asking for help covering teachers and associates that have no subs. The sub shortage issue will likely not be fixed if we move to hybrid 2, but we will hopefully need less subs as teachers are receiving less exposure and can remain socially distanced from the students for more of their day. I do not want to have to resort to a full virtual learning, and I know that we'll be forced to, like so many other districts in the metro now, if we continue hybrid 1 model while the COVID cases and death count is rising. We have already lost 1 staff member to COVID-19, and that is 1 too many. Please consider moving back to hybrid 2 so we can keep our kids safe in school.
Mr. Kurth, I'm back available now if you'd like me to take over.
Yes, please.
Next comment is from Kaylee Cox. Kaylee is a student and she lives at 1216 East 33rd Court. During this year and due to the pandemic, water fountains are out of use. I believe that the school should give each student a water bottle for no cost so that the students don't dehydrate, considering we have to wear masks during gym and don't have a resource of water. Dawson Weatherly, also a student, address is 408 2nd Street Northeast. I believe we should at least hybrid going further as coming to school is starting to become a major concern and risk, especially with winter approaching. Haley Pitts, also a student, 1483 Indigo Drive Southeast. The safest option right now is to switch our learning model to 100% online learning. The cases in the state and counties are rising, and in order to keep our staff, students, and families safe and healthy, alterations need to be made. With completely in-person learning, there's no possible way to social distance, especially in the hallways. Shoving thousands of kids into halls and stairwells is not a safe option under the circumstances we are facing. Even switching back to hybrid 2, where only 50% of the students during the school, was safer than hybrid 1, with all students back. Hybrid 2 makes it easier to social distance with half of the students. There's more room in the classroom, etc. Also with hybrid 2, education-wise, it is easier to get help when you need it in class because there aren't as many students in the class, so the teachers are able to get around to you and get you to help you need. Definitely think that hybrid 1 is not safe for the sake of our students, staff, and families. Change needs to be made and made soon. This is not a joke. AJ Schultz, 26 21st Avenue South, apartment number 208. We haven't been full-time in school long enough to see the repercussions of being full-time yet. It's also very hard to learn at home rather than at school. Please don't switch back. The safety measures we have in place are very much adequate. Heather Byers, 3113 3rd Avenue Southwest in Altoona. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you for your hard work throughout all of this. I am sure there have been countless hours of work that you have had to put in, and I want you to know that so many of us parents recognize and really appreciate it. As far as the decision you all have to make this evening, I am sure that the current positivity rate in the county is weighing heavily on your minds. Personally, both of my children are thriving in 100% school. Their grades and attitudes are much improved, and the consistent routine has been fantastic for them. I also know that based on the statistics that you publish online, the positivity rate in our school has been fairly low. As such, I just want to implore you to please make sure that whatever decision you all make tonight is not heavy-handed. Earlier this year, you voted to extend hybrid 2 for 6 weeks. 2 weeks later, several members had changed their minds, but we still had to wait 4 more weeks to get our schools into hybrid 1. Now our students have only been in hybrid 1 for a week and a half, and things are looking to get changed again. While my personal preference would always be for our kids to stay in hybrid 1, especially since the numbers within our district are good, I also recognize that my personal preference is not everyone's. Please, when you make a decision tonight, for all of us families whose kids are thriving in hybrid 1, don't make a heavy-handed decision. If you must make a change for a week or 2 and reevaluate. As we all know, things can change in a week or 2, and I implore you as a parent in this community to not lock us into something for another month or longer, when in 2 weeks, things could completely be different. I truly hope that we get to continue in hybrid 1 since our numbers are still low, but if we don't, please don't lock us into something for the next 4 to 6 weeks without a possible reevaluation. My kids are thriving, and we will be devastated to have to change from hybrid 1, but we would be even more so to know that is completely off the table for longer than may be. Looks like the final comment tonight is from Grayson. Grayson is a student. I would prefer to go to hybrid, I'm assuming 2, because it helps me organize what I need done and when, and feels a lot less claustrophobic than the current system. Those are the end of the Google form remarks.
Do you have any other public comments, Jason?
We do a few.
Okay.
So from Nicole Cruisenberry, the comment is our kids need to be in school. From Amy Wadstrom, keep our kids in school. From Jen H, our boys are loving being back in school 100%. It gives them a sense of normalcy. From the McIntyre family, it needs to be safe for our children to attend, and right now they don't feel safe. Feel hybrid was working. Assume she meant hybrid 2. Andy Barnes, I love seeing my students in person, but what about the lack of staff for coverage?
All right, does that conclude the public comments? All right, public comments are closed. Now we'll move on to Roman numeral 2, old new business, stay, return to learn. And I don't know, do we just want to discuss and then
Completely up
move
to the
a
board.
motion or- Sure.
I make a motion to move all buildings to hybrid 2 model beginning Monday, November 16th through Tuesday, November 24th. And then our next meeting, we can discuss at our next board meeting any
Okay.
further steps.
Is there-
I'll second that.
All right. Okay, discussion.
I've got the most recent data.
All right.
And
Dirk?
you've got that at your space,
Yes.
and Jason is also projecting it out as well. So we know that changing conditions have caused us the need here to review our return to learn plan. And so that's what we'll start with, the data tonight. So some of that data that we've been considering throughout the course of this year is based off the Iowa Department of Public Health and CDC guidelines, along with our own local data. So we're looking at things like positivity, absentee rates of both students and staff, the cases per 100,000 over 14 days, which is just a measure of community spread and community prevalence, and then our own dashboard data. So I'll walk us through that tonight. From a Polk County standpoint, the positivity today at 5 o'clock was 18.3%. Put that green line on there on the graph. Again, we all know this by heart by now that 5% and under is kind of that target for the community. But again, that's the entire county. So we drill that down to our own zip code data. And you can see on the chart there where our zip code data. This morning, as of 9 o'clock, which is the last update, Altoona was at 18%, Pleasant Hill was at 20%, Northeast Des Moines was at 19%, Runnels was at 21%, and Mitchellville was at 9%. When you put that into the unscientific weighting of just our own district, it puts us about 17.6%-ish. So kind of in the ballpark of where Polk County was, maybe just a little
That
bit
was
lower.
what time?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
They're just doing it once per day.
Okay.
Usually it's a little.
Okay.
So looking at absentee rates then, again, this is the ink blot graph. I understand that. On the next slide in a second, we can drill down into those specific numbers, but more than anything was just to let you see, since we've been in school, what that looks like. And you can tell over the last few days here, there's a white gap at the bottom of that graph for the first time. You can see that those rates are ticking up. On that next slide then, it's a building by building breakdown. Of absentee rates over the last 2 to 3 weeks here. Anything that's shaded yellow is in the 7 to 10% range. And red, or it looks pinkish on this as I'm looking at the screen here, is 10 or above. Normally, it's at that 10 or above phase where our nurses and the Polk County Health Department are having conversations about what we do with that building. When we look at staff, again, I just put this one up there so you see the beginning of the use case of that graph. And on the next slide is the actual breakdown building by building. Again, over that same time frame. And, you know, we do have this for the full year, but I didn't want to put all those numbers. There's enough there to begin with. And again, the same rules apply here. Yellow is in the 7 to 10% range. Red or pinkish, as we're looking at the screen here, is in that 10% plus range. This part is not governed by the health department. You know, it's not 10% of the staff means that you have to shut the building down or that. It gets into more of how we can provide services. And the natural question is, well, what is the percentage? And the answer is it depends on who the people are. Yeah, exactly. Was part of a conversation today with the Heartland area superintendents. And there really are no hard and fast rules as far as a percentage goes. So as you start ticking into the 15 to 20 range, it starts to become very difficult. And a lot of that then is dependent upon substitutes. And again, like we just said, who are they critical staff that depending on how easy it is to find someone to be able to do that function.
What's a normal year look like for staff absences? Because this is a whole lot of pink or red, whichever you want to call it.
This is 50% or above higher than normal.
Okay.
As we look at the cases per 100,000 over 14 days, technically the CDC recommendation is 70. In our discussion here, we kind of informally agreed that if we got down at 200, we would feel a lot more comfortable about that. This is the number of positive cases per 100,000 people in population over the course of 14 days.
Okay. All right.
It's just a measure of the prevalence of the virus in the community.
Okay. And you were saying 70 and some other figure.
Yeah, 70 is technically the CDC's definition of
Under
safe.
control.
Yeah, under control.
Okay.
What 200 was the red?
It was, yeah, that pinkish red. Yeah, where we kind of thought if we could get out of that, we'd feel a lot more comfortable. And again, I think in our discussion, to make sure there's no hard and fast if then on most of these criteria. It's looking at all of them and taking but I'm saying the green line on there at 200 is based off of our conversation here a month or 2 months ago, where we felt like that would be something that would be within range. And you can see that we're over 1,000 at this point right now.
Do you have a projection on the cases per 100,000 for just our zip code by any chance, or is that a bridge too far?
I don't have that.
Okay.
What I have in general from a projection standpoint is, I'm to state this correctly, sorry, I don't mean to stumble.
Fine.
Right now, for new cases per day in Polk County, we're around that 500 range of new cases per day if you look over the last several days. And the projections that the experts for Polk County in general is for that to continue to rapidly rise over the next month and push as high as the 2,000 number. The projections are just that. They're projections. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I sure hope it does not happen. But they're not saying they expect it to go away. The projection is just the opposite of what we would hope it to be.
Yeah. One person on the YouTube asked the question that actually is an interesting, how we see the data for our schools. How's the staffing for our transportation look?
You know, on any year, staffing for transportation is always a constant challenge, more so this year than ever. Yeah. So do we have the staff? Yes. But are they like anybody else here, hit and miss depending on the conditions?
Okay.
I've had several parents reach out to all of us. And we've all read them and we feel for their struggles, obviously. One, I don't want us to ever forget the needs of our special ed students. If we do go to the recommendation of going back to hybrid too, that I hope students that have a 504 plan and an IEP would continue to be allowed to meet every day as their IEP dictates.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll cover that when we get to the
Okay,
the end
okay,
of
I'm
this
sorry.
part. But yes, we would do just what we did in the past when we were
Okay.
in.
Just wanted to make that
You bet.
comment.
If you look at our dashboard data, there's the overall graphs, and again, you can see the uptick.
Isolation means.
Isolation means a
tested.
positive test.
Quarantine means
Quarantine
they've been
means-
exposed.
Correct. They were a close contact. Yep,
And then the gray is, that's been contact at school.
correct.
Dr. Lubnick, can you just clarify on the quarantine? My understanding is that just because they're quarantined doesn't give them an automatic 14 days out of school. They have to go get tested. Once they tell you they've been in close contact with somebody else, then they go get tested and then they tell you yay or nay. If they come back and say they're negative, what's the process? How long do they remain out of school?
Sure. I think we have Amy Chebahar on the line here, and she may be the best person to answer that. What I would say, Brett, is again, it depends on the scenario. So it's kind of a case by case piece.
Yep, I can jump in a little bit and explain that. So if somebody is deemed as a close contact, whether it be in school or from a community, they have to quarantine for 14 days from the last date of contact of that positive person. It doesn't matter if they test negative. If they want to go take a test and it's negative, it doesn't get them out of quarantine. If they test and it's positive, that then moves them into a 10-day isolation. So it could adjust the dates that they're out of school. But if they want to test and try and test out, if you will, of quarantine, that you can't do that. So a negative test won't get you back any sooner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind
My question on
of.
that,
And then I guess I struggle with this piece because
go ahead, Brett.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off if I did.
No, go ahead.
I guess my piece on that is where I kind of have a little struggle with it is if I say I was in close contact with somebody outside of school, I guess where's the policing of that? We're just taking their word so they can go get tested, and then we don't really know anything about it. So we're kind of taking the word of somebody.
Yeah, that's correct. If a parent
Just
calls and
says, well, I
says,
was in close contact with somebody, and then
yeah, that's correct. We're just taking the word of the parent. If they call and say their son or daughter was exposed on this day, we kind of walk through the whole scenario with them and determine the last day and then count the 14 days out. So we don't require any proof, per se. We're taking the word of the parent.
And that's the tough thing for us to be making decisions on when you have a positive number, that obviously carries more weight. I would like to think that everybody's being honest here and not just, wanting to take some extra time out of school, whether it's student or staff. And I know there's going to be some angry people when I say that, but that's just the truth. And people do, this is a scary situation, and some people just don't want to be in the building. So I guess the quarantine numbers are, to me, are kind of a tough one to kind of take. And it looks like our numbers are, when you look at the actual positive. I mean, they're not good. They're not spreading. It shows there's not a trend. Would that be?
Brett, you're breaking up. We heard about every third word there towards the end.
Sorry.
That's all right. Technology is
Yeah, sorry
vexing
about
us
that.
this evening.
I'll be quicker.
I think we understand.
Can
your
you hear me
concern.
okay now?
Yeah, I think we got the gist of it.
We're worried that. we're
Did you-
trusting
Okay.
to be honest with us.
My question,
Yeah.
oh, or Brett, you still have
I-
more? Go ahead.
No, did you guys catch the question of on the positivity rate? From what I can see, that it shows that it's not spreading inside our building. Most of the contacts are from outside. Is that accurate?
Overwhelmingly.
Somebody want to take that? That's what it looks like to me, but
At least in terms of the students, yeah. I mean, it's much closer when you look
Right.
at the staff, but
Yeah, I can verify that most of the contacts are coming from outside the school.
okay.
So, I guess in some respect, our mitigation is working. It's not. I mean, I get it. We've got some crowded hallways, but our hallway is moving, not standing still. And since I'm breaking up, I'm gonna go ahead and stop. If I'll type something to Gary if I have anything
I'm
else.
sorry, that's right. Gary, you had a question.
Yeah, Amy, my question was, and I understand we're taking their word for it. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, yes, we're hoping they're honest, but I would think they would be in something like this. But the thing that kind of stands the logic on its head is that if they test negative, it's almost, if they test positive, they're out shorter. They're only out 10 days after the positive test. Then if they test negative and they were exposed, they're out 14. I mean, that's the way that works, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And
And
I realize you're taking your order, or, you're working with the public or Polk County Health, but that's just from an outsider looking at it. It's like, well, that seems to stand logic on its head, but
Yeah, it sometimes doesn't make sense. The thought process behind that would be if somebody is positive, they're saying they can shed the virus and potentially spread it up till 10 days after the start of first symptoms. So that's where the 10-day isolation comes from. And then theoretically, if somebody is around that person for any time in that 10 days, data has shown that it can brew up in that person's system, and then they may not show symptoms for up to 14 days. So the quarantine period is a safety period to just make sure and see if the body is brewing up the illness, if they get sick in those 14 days. If somebody's already sick, Polk County has shared with us that on about day 9 of that 10-day isolation, when they go and try and grow coronavirus in a lab setting, it has shown that it has decreased enough to where it wouldn't pass along to somebody else. So the contagibility is much smaller. So that's kind of where they come up with the day 10. They give it an extra day. And so to spread the virus and to be contagious, that's where the 10 days comes from. So yeah, it sounds weird, and it somehow seems like it doesn't make sense, but that's kind of the background on those 2 dates.
okay, I get it. I guess it's the surety of if they do test negative or test positive, there is that window where they'll have it, and then they'll stop throwing the virus, shedding the virus. But if they're negative, it doesn't mean they're in the clear. You don't know that to a certainty.
Right, that's correct. Because if they could if they test too soon, if maybe they test
Right.
too soon, it wouldn't show it. So Yeah, and they say anywhere between that, if they want to test in a quarantine period, anywhere between like the 5 to 7 day range in quarantine is if they're not showing symptoms, is the best time to test for that.
And this is probably an unfair question, and I don't want specifics, but generally, to your knowledge, are people that are out on quarantine, are they having symptoms?
We are, I can't answer that for
Okay.
sure because we're trying to call and follow up with the people who are in quarantine. It's kind of gotten to be so many now that we're,
Yeah, sure,
you know,
I understand.
so I can't really answer that for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay,
Gary,
thank you.
I can say this, that we've had staff on quarantine that have then become positive cases. I
Okay,
think the majority do not, but it has happened.
okay. Thank you.
I've got a couple quick questions.
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, I guess one question would be, of the close contacts that are happening at school, because that is defined as, 15 minutes where you're not both wearing masks, do we have an idea of what situations are causing those?
Yep. So the students that are being put into the quarantine because they don't have masks, we've just, this past week, it's really just been in the lunchroom situations for the elementary, and recess, a little bit in recess. And then for secondary, some of the special ed rooms, because, kids, if they can't wear a mask.
Help me out here because my brain is blanking on this. What's when you can actually pop a positive test? I remember it being something 4 to 7 days or something like that. Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, you cut out in the middle there, so I couldn't quite hear.
How long before or after exposure before you could actually test positive? Is there any information on that?
I don't have anything specific in front of me, but it is somewhere in that 14 day.
Well, and the reason I ask is because the numbers that we have aren't based on what hybrid 1 yet. They're still low, good, bad, ugly. They're still from the hybrid 2 from a week and a half ago. So we haven't actually seen our hybrid 2, or our hybrid 2 was actually seeing it because of the community spread, not hybrid 1. So it could be much worse in a week or so. We won't know, but who knows?
Another quick question. In terms of nursing staff and contact tracing and all the stuff that you guys have to do now, are we still doing okay there? Or are we getting short-staffed at this point?
Yeah, it's been a struggle. The contact tracing takes so long. So one case is so much work, and I feel like our numbers look great, but that I don't feel like the numbers accurately reflect the amount of work that the nurses do for each of those. So it's definitely been a struggle. We're constantly working in the evenings, on weekends, just trying to make sure that the contact tracing is done with fidelity. We don't want to rush through anything, make sure we're very thorough in deciding who needs to be quarantined. We have nurses in every building, and we're pretty close to having health aides to help. So that helps. But just with the contact tracing, it's so much work. And right now we're in the midst of our immunization audits for Polk County as well, and trying to do all of the other functions for nursing. So we're getting it done. We're nurses, so we're getting it done, but it has been exhausting.
This is Rick Pell. I have a question. At the start of the school year, I know it was laid out that the nurse's office would have a kind of like a COVID room, and then also another room that was for other sicknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case? And and also I know that a few schools share a nurse. So are there some school days that a school's without a nurse?
So for your first question, yes, we all have, we call it a well room and then a sick room. So we have been trying to funnel the sick kids, keeping them separate from the well kids, which would be, first aid or kids who need meds or procedures, those types of things. So we do still kind of run the nurse's offices that way. We have a nurse in every building. And so, so we haven't been, there are no nurses that have to share a building, but we have had nurses out and we have trouble getting, nurse subs is kind of the same concern for teachers. It's difficult to get a nurse sub. So I try and help out and we try and cover each other if there needs to be insulin given, if there's not a nurse or something like that. But the health aides in the buildings that have them now have been a tremendous help.
Thank you.
I had the same question Chad had on like the students as far as where their school quarantine and isolations are coming from. Like apply that towards our staff as well.
Mm-hmm. I would say there's a few more staff quarantined from school exposure, but there still are more staff quarantined from outside exposure.
I mean, like what's causing like the major causes of our staff
Mm-hmm.
like quarantine during?
Yep. Recently, being in contact maybe with a positive student who wasn't wearing a mask correctly, or maybe staff are eating together and they're realizing they're a little too closer than 6 feet. And so we have to quarantine, 3 or 4 people in that situation. So those kinds of things.
Excellent. It looks like our numbers are very good as far as what our school mitigation is doing. So obviously it's one of those things where we're at the mercy of the community, and just kind of asking our community to do what they can to slow the spread. Because it affects everything that we do, and affects what our kids get to do, what our teachers get to do. Same thing for our staff and students. So I'd say thank you to all you, what you're doing in the schools. Because the mask use is working. We've remained very, very stable as far as what we've done in the schools. So I want to thank all the students and all the staff for what they're doing. Only way this is going to work is if we have 100% buy-in. So all of our staff, all of our students need to be diligent about all of our policies and procedures every day. Because like I said, I was very impressed with how flat our data has been. So, and we're going to have waves come through just like we do with the flu and everything else. And that was shown in our absentee rates of the buildings. So, you see Centennial went through theirs, Delaware went through theirs, came back down. Mitchellville went through theirs, went clear up to 15%, came back down, it's at 0. Reynolds, same kind of thing. They had a week where it was bad and then they're back to normal. So to me, it follows basically a normal trend as far as sickness goes. We had this last year with the flu. We've had it every year where we'll have a bad week. It goes around the building real quick and then it's back out. So, and that's what I'm seeing when I look through all this data. That's why I was a little bit shocked as far as us trying to move models, just saying, hey, it looks like what we're doing is working. So, things are remaining pretty stable. We're going to, like I said, we're going to have those small flashpoints, but all of our flashpoints have went up and came right back down. So
what you're saying is what we were doing when this data occurred was working, which was hybrid 2.
no, this is our data now. Quarantines are only thing that have showed up that are delayed. So a lot of most positive cases pop symptoms within 3 to 4 days. So
Here's the
so
thing,
most of this data is what we're doing. So as of this is up through today.
So less than half of this data is from after we moved to hybrid 1.
When did we move to hybrid 1, Adam?
The second,
Last Monday.
Yeah, last Monday.
so 6 days.
Yes. And we've had rolling trends. That's what I'm saying.
All of
It's- this is-
Mitchellville's was prior to that. All of Runnels was prior to that. Those that you're talking about have fallen now happened while we were doing the higher level of mitigation, not the lower level of mitigation. So based on what you're saying is the higher level of mitigation, or I should say the lower level after second, is what we see resulting at Willowbrook, what we see resulting at the high school, what we see resulting at Centennial. That's when hybrid 1 came into picture.
What are you talking about?
So you're trying to say that there's waves and they go away.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you're actually looking at the data, the waves go away when we had the higher level of mitigation. When we've had the lower level of mitigation, we haven't seen the waves go away. We've seen more prominence.
You mean the fact that Runnels was like at 11% on the 26th when we were in hybrid 2, and now it's
Sure.
at 2%?
Sure. That's what I'm saying, is because we had that, it's gone down, it's gone away. But we're seeing more of our schools now actually having prominence of absences statistically across the board than we did when we had hybrid 2.
No, we're actually split. So student data, 5 buildings are on an upward trend, 5 buildings are holding steady, and 1 building has a downward trend. That's your student absentee data.
I'm not,
So that's 5, 5, and 1. 2 of the 4 buildings with the higher rates
So-
were the buildings with our least population.
let's be clear. First and foremost, it's not the student absentee data that's causing us problems.
Right, that's. my
It's
view
staff
of it.
absentee data.
We haven't even talked about that yet.
We have talked about that.
Well, another thing you got to think about too is, are all these absentees COVID related? And I would say probably not.
I don't know that that matters. An empty
wonder.
classroom is an empty classroom, regardless of the reason the classroom's empty. If the teacher is gone, the teacher is gone. It doesn't matter if it's COVID related, doesn't matter if it's flu related, doesn't matter if it's maternity related, it doesn't matter. If we can't replace them because there's a shortage of substitutes, and it doesn't matter why we have to replace them.
I think your argument was that the numbers are going up. You were talking COVID, so I just wanted to mention that since you want to make a point of it, so.
No, and I am, and that's part of the point as well. But I mean, when we're talking about staff absences, it doesn't matter why the staff is absent, they're absent. And if we can't fill that spot because there's a shortage of substitutes, then we have to find a way to breach it, whether it's COVID related, whether it's flu related, doesn't make a difference.
Okay, then how does hybrid 2 staff our classrooms?
Hybrid 2 allows us to be safer in the classrooms to begin with.
You can't say that.
How so?
You don't have no
Most of-
data to prove that. Since we went back, that data has been flat.
Are you looking at the same charts we are?
So I'm trying to figure out what hybrid 2 does to staff our classrooms.
Are you looking at the same graphs that we are that show that there's this huge U-shaped curve that occurred while we were in hybrid 2? This goes hand in hand with what we're seeing in the community data as well here in Polk County. It dipped and now it's on its way back up.
I think the increases are because of the community spread mostly. I mean, yeah, we
Okay.
had some
Yes.
increase in the building, but it looks.
Yes, our building data is good.
Yeah.
Community data is community data. Like I said, we cannot control that. What we're doing right now is we're providing a safer environment within our schools for our kids. So we're not seeing community spread within our buildings. So outside the buildings,
We
yes, and
haven't
that's
had
all of
the
our
time
quarantines.
frame to say that we're not seeing that.
I wasn't done talking. So what we're seeing is an outside spread
Mhm.
in the flat line when we're in the buildings. That's what I'm saying. We're not seeing community spread within our buildings. So we're giving up on something without having any data that says, wow, we're seeing a shift. We're seeing this. We're not seeing any kind of change. So like I just said, 5 buildings and student absentee rates, steady, 5 with an upward trend, 1 with a downward trend.
Okay.
So 2 of the 4 buildings were the lowest population buildings with the highest rates. Right now, 0.4% of students are on isolation. 3.4% are on quarantine, and 0.3 related to school. 0.3%.
Once again, I
So
would
that's
redirect you to the
policy,
fact
that's
that I
math.
said that.
Adam. Hey, can I finish?
If you're going to get something that actually dictates our ability to have class, then yes, by all means,
How does hybrid 2 let us have class?
because it keeps it safer for our staff and our students actually in the building.
Can't say that.
I
You
absolutely
have no
can,
data that shows that hybrid 1 has done anything to our data.
because we haven't been around long enough.
Okay, then why are we moving?
Then why would you play
You sit
chicken
here
and
and
just
tell
hope
these
that it,
parents why we're moving if we don't have any data to move.
because the community spread dictates we implement a safer option.
You can't say that.
Okay, guys, we can have our discussion, but let's try to keep the lid from boiling over.
To be clear, this is not the flu. And I appreciate all the staff and the students doing everything they possibly can to reduce community spread, to reduce the spread in the buildings the best they can, to keep everyone as safe as they can. But this is not the flu. And the fact that I have to repeat that again, this is not the flu. Take care of yourself. Stay home. Don't go do social things. It's not necessary. We appreciate all the extra work, the ridiculous amount of work that we're asking the staff to do, and trying to keep the buildings open. Thank you.
So I guess, Derek, I'll ask you, how does hybrid 2 help us staff our classrooms?
You bet. I've been waiting to finish my part of the
Yeah, I
presentation.
guess we did jump in on you.
I did share both the student and the staff data, and if you saw there are positive cases with students, our staff numbers are going up. I would agree with what's being said. Our mitigation procedures and strategies, they're working and we're proud of them. And we are reflecting what's happening. And the problem is what's happening in the community is growing larger and larger, and it's predicted to continue to grow larger. And so therefore my concern is being able to sustain this over time as those numbers continue to grow. I know that the recommendation creates difficulty. We understand that. None of us wants to be here having this meeting, talking about this on a Wednesday night. But with the trends, the concern is I'm not sure we can sustain hybrid 1 without having to move to 100% online. And I want to avoid that as long as possible. There's no guarantee that hybrid 2 does that. There isn't. But it does give us some flexibility, and that goes to the answer to your question. And it keeps in-person learning on the table as part of our plan. When we're in hybrid 2, let's say we have an elementary teacher, second grade teacher, and we can't find a sub. When we're in hybrid 2, there's at least a chance that we can combine the students from that one section into the other 2 sections, still keeping our social distancing and be able to continue to teach those kids. When we're in hybrid 1, that's not an option. There's too many students to be able to fit like that. Again, maybe that works, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe hybrid 2 works, maybe it doesn't. We don't know that. But what I want to do is avoid online for as long as possible. And this recommendation is my recommendation to you. It's the best way I can see to go down that path. It's not perfect. We know that. It's going to create hardship. We know that. Everything about this from the beginning has created hardship. And nobody wants to be doing this. But it's the situation we're in. The community spread is out of control. Literally, it's uncontrolled spread. And we have to then deal with that. We don't get a choice.
What would push us into virtual? Like what would be what's the absolute on that one?
Say that again.
What would push us into virtual?
Not having the staff to be able to provide services would be probably the first thing as we look at our data here. The second thing would be, I'm guessing, outside of our control, as the community numbers continue to go the way they go, if people outside of our control either direct us or ask us to do that kind of thing.
They would do that just based mostly on absentee rates?
They would do that based on all the things that we've talked about, each one of those data points. Yeah.
Okay. Because we can control we can't control that. We can help mitigate the loss of staff just in the fact that they deemed. As far as like if it came to closing down versus because we don't have enough staff, then we could just use the whole essential employee thing to let our staff that's quarantined but not positive still work to keep the buildings open and keep things going. So we have a solution for that in order to keep our educational processes moving.
Which is kind of happening right now in the online side of the world. The teachers, staff members that are in quarantine and have not tested positive can still teach in the online side of things.
Yep. And we can use them in the classroom as well. That's what I'm saying. We've got options as far as we're worried just about staffing concerns. There's options. I mean, and moving models, like I said, less than ideal is an absolute. I think everybody knows that. It's just we're bailing on it before we're even giving it a chance as far as that goes. I mean, we're not seeing any trend where that says, hey, we're going to be in danger. We're seeing trend as far as staff absences, which I just said we can actually mitigate with the essential. And that's why I'm kind of confused as far as the move so quickly.
I think it's the community stuff that's
Oh
the
yeah,
water's
community's a big
washing over the zone.
The community spread right now, it's exponential.
Yeah.
And if it continues on the current predicted path, it's going to be, it's inevitably going to influence our absentee rate. And when we have situations right now, I mean, that were mentioned, like lunchrooms, PE, special ed, I know for a fact in the lunchrooms, like in the junior high, we went from having kids spaced out, no masks because they can't while they're eating, spaced out. Now we have 7 kids at a table instead of 4 because we have to. So those situations in hybrid 1, we can't do anything about those right now. And so, I mean, I think the proposal here makes sense in that those few situations where we are seeing those close contacts are areas that we can handle way better in a hybrid 2. And when we made the decision to go to hybrid 1, we had about 235 cases per 100,000. Now we're over 1,000. We had a 6.9% positivity rate. Now we're at 18.3. I mean, so these numbers are dramatically different than where we were, and we can't isolate ourselves from the community as a district. All we can do is what we can do with masks and cleaning and distancing. And in hybrid 1, the distancing is kind of out the door. So that's the way I look at it. I mean, we could argue all night as to whether hybrid 1 or hybrid 2 is significantly different. But I think that hybrid 1 seems to open the door to so many more possible exposures than hybrid 2 does.
If you're talking lunchtime, yeah. And that's, I guess we haven't heard that there's been a problem in the buildings as far as lunch. So I guess I'd ask why we're not spacing out.
No room.
So, I
Space
mean,
is finite.
well, yeah, but I mean, how is space different now than it was when we started H1 though?
No, because that didn't start until H1. That's what he was just saying, is that it's
Right.
now is a problem that we have 7 and 8 at the table, where it used to be 3, maybe 4 at those tables. So because we doubled the kids, the space was halved. So that's why hybrid 1 is a problem, is because space is finite, staff is finite. We don't have infinite places to put these people. I mean, you saw the pictures that came out of the high school. It's ridiculous.
Well, passing times are passing times. But yeah, if we haven't been able to space at the junior high for the last week and a half, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the same thing's pretty much, throughout. I mean, in some places we're able to spread better than others, but we can't do we knew that going into it, but we were in a completely different place from a community spread standpoint at that decision point. So, what can we do? We can't control the community. What can we do as a district to be as safe as possible and try to ride this wave out until it comes back down? Hopefully that's in a couple weeks or a month, but we don't know. And all we can do is what we can do.
I think we also need to keep our teachers in our thoughts, because right now they're struggling, as many of you mentioned. Many schools have asked their teachers to eat lunch in their cars just because they don't have any place for them to eat in isolation. And I can't imagine that mentally as a former teacher. I might be tempted to drive home. I wish we had more space in our schools, but we don't. I don't know if you can find places for even teachers to socially eat lunch. I know it's really a struggle for our students, but when you look at how old some of our teachers are and how much stress they're under, I'm really worried about our teachers. I'm sure all 7 of us are. Right now, they're being asked to cover each other's classes. And I think if you listen to our superintendent a minute ago, hybrid 2, he just said it a minute ago, would allow us, like, especially at the elementary and at Spring Creek, if you have a teacher absent for whatever reason, you could possibly split their class of the teacher that's absent and send them, if it's a 3rd grade teacher, you can send half of the kids to one teacher if there's a 3-section building, and half to the other teacher. Because they've been in hybrid now, what will be 2 weeks by Friday. I think having another 6 students is doable. And we got to start being creative, which we all are. We have great administration. We have great district office. Our teachers are warriors, like Lori and all of us have said, and Brett. We have to think of solutions. We can't just keep arguing. And right now, we're only asking for 7 days before we talk again. If I counted my days right of the proposal, I think we owe it to our community to at least do that and talk about it again next, 8 days from now when we meet on Thursday of next week. And Tom, we want to come back to hybrid 1 as soon as possible. I want that as much as, maybe not as much as you, but I want it very, very much. But I want it to be safe. And I'm really worried about our teaching staff. I think all of us are.
I think one thing that's frustrating is looking at the data. Hindsight's always 2020, and that's of course what we do in the law all the time. And it's hard when you're standing there at the moment. You don't know all the variables, but looking at hindsight, I think we could have been at hybrid 1 quicker than we were, but I'm not the one that has to make it work. This guy is, and and I get it. You've got to have your people buying in because it's scary, and it's getting scarier. And I understand too that he's the one that has to figure out who's going to cover this class. I mean, his people that report to him are figuring that out. And to me, it's the staffing thing. So I think, I'm thankful, I guess, that we're talking about a hybrid rather than 100% virtual. And, maybe the data will slide the other way. I expect, like it's being said, that it's going to get worse before it gets better, but maybe we can ratchet back to hybrid 2 and hold that for as long as we can before something else happens. And, and as far as getting better, or maybe it doesn't and we have to go virtual, because to me, it's like as the colder it gets and the more we're inside, probably the more this stuff's going to get. And again, I agree with Tom, looking at our school data, it looks pretty good, all things considered. And you might be right, Adam. Maybe we don't have enough data to say where we're going to be at with 1 fully, but at least what we're looking at so far looks good. But it's frustrating. There's no easy answers, but I'm glad that we're at least talking about a hybrid 2 rather than 100% virtual. So, and I know everybody's working hard. Every time I'm at one of these meetings, I hear somebody, we had Jason Campbell. I think, gosh, what does his job look like this year? What a nightmare. What a horror. And then I listen to Amy and what she's dealing with and her nurses. And I mean, good Lord, they have to be going 24/7 all the time. And there's all the teachers.
And the parents are too.
And the
They're working
parents,
their-
we're hearing from them and the students, so
Nobody wants to do this to anybody. And
that's for sure.
we didn't ask to do this to any of you out there madder than a hornet, but we have to do what's best for the entire community. Can I call the question?
Everybody done talking?
Have we had any steps made towards coming up with some type of matrix that would be something in the realm of what other districts have?
Yeah, we've talked on and off about that over the course of this fall. And ironically, this was another discussion point today. Several of our peers that are now kind of ditching those and trying to come up with something new, because it's just, there's not one thing that's holding true. And it's more of a series of influencing factors, which is ironically the way that we've been treating it here from the beginning. I keep sharing the same types of data points over and over again, and you guys are following the same things on your own too. I'm not against putting together something like that. The matrix piece, though, it's kind of been thrown out the window right now with the current situations.
About the only thing I've heard outside of Matrix was Waukee. I know that they've got a set percentage right now. If they have a school that goes to 84% people present, so 16% out, they close it down for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And my understanding is based on the governor's new proclamation, we no longer have to ask permission. We just can do it for 2 weeks. Is that, I know it's kind of a gray area.
2 days.
oh, is it 2 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
You missed yesterday's meeting, apparently.
Huh?
You missed yesterday's meeting.
Well, no,
apparently.
because I mean, we could always do it for 1 week. So the two days is nothing. So we could always do it for 1 week, because then the next week, if you're back, you're at 50% anyway. So it makes no difference. So.
Well, Dirk, when you're looking at things, I appreciate that what you're looking at, and I know you're looking at a lot of different things, but you're really focused on, okay, what's going on in our buildings, students and staff. That to me makes the most sense. And that's at least seems like when we have our conversations, that's where you start. I appreciate that. I know you're looking at other things too, like community spread, which we should, but it's always okay. And we've got our sheet, what's going on in Willowbrook and Delaware and Clay and high school, et cetera.
And I'd be happy to put together some of those, factors, to consider, something like that for the board to consider for the 19th meeting, if that's something that we wanted to take a look at.
I would I would really like to see some high level, whether it's a matrix or just some thresholds that we're considering. I think it would be good for us as we're making decisions, and also good to communicate to the community so they know these are maybe trigger points. Not the hard and fast rule that's going to make the decision for us, because there's so many factors, like you said, but just to reinforce that our decisions should be data driven. I mean, we should be looking at the data and making decisions based on that. And as we understand that data better, and there are new things that we learn about the virus, obviously that those matrix and numbers probably have to change. And that's what I think a lot of those other districts that have put them together are realizing, that what they thought about at the beginning of the school year is different than what they're thinking about right now. But to me, overall, it'd be valuable to have some kind of numbers that we're saying, hey, if we hit these thresholds, that would indicate we should really be talking about online or hybrid 2 or hybrid 1 or back to business as usual.
I have I guess, staffing question. So if 6.5% of our staff is out due to COVID-related issues, do we know what the other 6% is? I mean, because it's about equal as far as, does that make any sense? Like, do we have any visibility into like what the other 6% is? Because we broke it down and said, hey, 6.5% is COVID-related, whether it's a quarantine or a positive or whatever.
Right. Yes. Yeah, HR has that.
Is that something that, I mean, we can address too, as far as, I don't know, it's just, I'm trying to think of like where our staff's going, what we can do, you know what I mean, as far as to get them back in the building and all that. Because like I said, if I said, hey, essential, that only affects 6% of our 12% that's gone. So half of our employees that
Yeah,
are, that are
it's
actually
a little more complicated than that, because beyond that, of those that are out with illness, like I can say today, we've got 15 that are awaiting test results. So they're not part of that number
Yet.
but they might be.
Yeah.
And then we have others that are ill. And right now, what does that mean?
Right.
I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Just break it down to COVID non. I mean, same with students. I mean, it's what, 4.1%. So it's just over half of our student absences are COVID related too. So it's just kind of, I'm struggling with this, saying, hey, I've got 4% absentee rate due to COVID and a 6% absentee rate due to COVID. And then we're moving models because of that. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we were just sitting here looking at that only, it'd be crazy. Be crazy to say we're going to move models and hybrid 1's not working, it's too dangerous, because we have 4% of our people out.
Yeah, but
So that's,
with,
I mean, that's why I'm struggling. I know it's the grand total that we're
right,
talking about, but
yeah, with
that's why,
staff, it's
yeah, but we're still
it's
talking.
double that.
Yeah.
Because of other reasons,
Right.
so.
That's why I'm not sure why we're blaming just COVID and we're moving models saying it's not safe and that's the reason. That's why I've been struggling with this going, our data looks flat. And these are the percentages I keep coming out with going, wow. I mean, it's 1.5% of our absences are school related issues, exposures as far as COVID. 1.5. And yet we're moving from a hybrid 1 to a hybrid 2 because of that.
So
That's why I can't wrap my head around the numbers because as far as if we're looking at just numbers and let the data tell us the truth and follow the data, then we're not moving models. We're sticking with hybrid 1. We're doing what we're doing, and that's the way it goes. If we're talking about what's happening within our school building,
but what's happening within
So-
our school during that exact data you're talking about is derived from the hybrid model.
it's not.
So if that's what we're saying is successful, then we should have never moved to begin with. That's what we're saying here. The data you're pointing to is derived from the model that you're saying you wanted to move away from, not from the model we're currently
No,
using.
we're a week and a half in. It's right now. I'm talking about today's.
But
Talking about
as stated,
as of right
when
now.
it takes anywhere, when it takes that type of gestation period and everything else, we're not seeing that. The model we're seeing in this last week is showing a stark increase of what we saw previously. And that's both community spread and actually looking at what happens in our building. I mean, look at the teachers' numbers.
I mean, does that make any kind of sense, Derek? What I'm saying?
Help me out with where you're getting your percentages.
So you've got our 233 students on quarantine, 27 school exposures, 30 isolations. Right? And then out of our student population. So that's how many COVID-related absences we have right now. So, and then same thing with our staff, 16 isolated, 49 quarantine, 15 school-related out of our 1,200 plus employees. So, I mean, when I look at the numbers like that, it drives me crazy. Because like I said, I've been pouring over these, and I don't see why that prompts us to go. So we're fixing half of our teachers' absences. We're not fixing half their absences. Because a majority of theirs are coming from where? The community. And it's going to continue. So by us rolling from hybrid 1 to hybrid 2, our community-based absences and quarantines for our students and our teachers will either remain the same or they could go up. They could, you know what I mean? We're not fixing that problem.
As Dirk explained earlier when he surmised or ended his presentation, hybrid 2 gives us flexibility that hybrid 1 does not.
You're talking about combining classrooms. That's one option. And then
Okay.
another option was what? Going essential with our employees, and we could still use those employees.
So basically drafting them back in after they've been exposed.
It's an essential employee.
Un-
So we just said, how many of these quarantines? It's the same thing I would do, Adam.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, and I made the mistake of mentioning essential employees apparently, but that's the way it's done. I mean, I'm an employment lawyer. I deal with private sector. I don't deal with schools where they've got to survive, and they only survive if they're making money. They say, if you don't have symptoms, you're an essential employee. This product has to be made or service has to be done. But, you know, I'm not advocating that. And it sounds like what Dirk's saying, if they don't have symptoms, and I know one in particular, then they are still zooming in and they're still doing their job. Maybe that's not across the board, but so I think we are doing, it's like you said, we're de facto doing, you know, if they can do it, they're feeling okay, they're doing it. And I agree with a lot of what you say, Tom, but if the stuff, because I agree, I think if I look at our overall numbers in our buildings, what we're doing, man, we can pat ourselves on the back. Now, maybe we can a week from now, maybe it's going to do this.
Right.
But the, whether they got exposed at school, which likely they have not, or whether they got exposed in the community, which the data is showing that's where likely it is, we still have an employee that's been exposed that's going to get pulled out of the, you know, set on the bench to figure out whether they've got it or not. There's 100 and some holes this man has to fill to keep the thing running. So 100 and a half or whatever it is, a large number. So I think I don't think you can just say, well, because it's good in school, because if they've been infected out in the community, we still have to deal with it, whether it was in our building or outside.
So yeah, and I totally agree with you. And that's what I'm saying. By switching models, we're not fixing a problem with that. So our biggest problem, our outside exposures are still there and our outside quarantine. So it's not our school exposures that are causing our staff shortage. It's the outside. So like I said, the only rationale we've had so far is if we switch models, we can combine classrooms. That's it.
But I think it gives the principals a lot more flexibility what they can do with their staff besides combining classes. I mean, you have some special teachers, I want us to keep special, allow us to use them if we need to. I'm just trying to answer your question, Tom.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love it because I want
It
to
helps with
understand.
associates. It helps with lots of things. It helps with lunch. I mean, some of these things that we just have talked about. It helps with distancing. So, I mean, I would take point with some of that. But I also said in my closing statement there that there's no guarantee with any model, but there's no guarantee that hybrid 2 is going to make the difference, because maybe it is the community spread. And whether that's 50% or 75% of our overalls, if it continues to grow exponentially outside of here,
Right.
we're still going to see that
Right.
and still deal with the effects of that.
Right. Well, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And that's why I'm just trying to understand so we're combining classrooms. Lunch should have been figured out already. I mean, we're a week and a half in. So I struggle a little bit with that because I haven't heard anything about us not having spacing at lunch until now. And I haven't seen quarantines from that, even on here, right? I mean, there's not even, on our data, there's not even quarantines that say, hey, lunch exposures, and all of a sudden it's jumped up and we've had all these problems and stuff. I haven't seen that either, but we have that potential, which I do not like as far as that goes, because I don't like violating any of our quarantine rules as far as the non-mask and all that. So
I mean, that would be good. That would be good data to have. If that's something we could see, is where
We had a break in the
a
lunchroom.
break.
Identifying specific staff or students, and
Right,
that's
Right,
not.
right. Within the
right.
lunchroom's a hot spot, the high school or junior high or wherever, and that would be an area we could try to address specifically. So
I think they probably already know where's a hot spot.
Yeah, I think Amy shared that with you, the two different scenarios.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the
Mhm. Yeah, kids have trouble finding space evidently, as far as that goes. So,
It's not finding space. There is no space.
Dr. Halutnik, I have a question. Since I'm not there, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me still or not.
Yes,
Gotcha.
Can you hear me? Okay.
yes.
I just have a quick question on, so if we were to go to all online, would each teacher have all their own students?
yes.
Okay, so, and would they be going every day, or would they be going every other day? I guess how would online piece work?
It would be every day. It's governed by the same instructional hours rules as face-to-face is.
Okay, so I guess my question is if we're leaning towards this, going back to an A/B schedule, is there a reason why we can't do an every day on A/B where, and I know we have some issues with daycares and stuff like that, but we would have the same issues if we went on all lines. So I guess, because I'm really struggling here today because I see the numbers as far as what we're doing inside the classrooms. I mean, some people argue it, but that's just the way it goes. But I think we're doing some great stuff in there. But I think we need to do the best that we can if we're going to go back to an A/B of getting as much class time. And I know I'll speak for my family's experiences. It's more on the off days when you're not in class. It's more of a get your assignment, and then you're on your own. Where I guess I would like to see more of, if the A's in class, B would still be online that day. And I know that's a lot of screen time, but I think we owe it to our families that want 100% some sort of an education that we try to work with those families as well. So, and I guess with the fact that we would, if we went 100% online, I guess I don't see a reason why we couldn't do that with the A and B.
Yeah, I hear you, Brett. Had this conversation with Steve Pettit today. We have learned from doing this before, and I know that's something that he kind of is in that same mindset with you. Specifically, I know for core classes, what that looks like exactly, I don't want to box him into a corner or say, because I'm not going to speak for him, but I know that's something that they've been kicking around as a staff, to how to improve that if we would ever go back there.
Well, and I don't mean to sound like we should have been working on that, but I mean, if we had an option today that we were going to go online full time, I guess it's kind of, I guess I'm glad to hear that it's being talked of. It just, I would like to see, I guess, I know it's only a few days, but I mean, I think we have the access of, going online right now. I guess, how long do you think it would take to do something like that?
I mean, if you think about it here, we've got at just talking specifically to the high school level, we have a good chunk of students that are fully online at the high school level, and this is already happening right now. So there's not a lot as far as that goes, if that's the direction that we go after tonight.
Yeah, and I guess I would like, in some form in the elementaries too, because I know it's going to be a little more difficult there. Like I said, with the daycares and the directions that families go, it's tougher to get a kindergartner to be online 100%. I get that, but I do not want to go 100% online in any way that we can prevent that and get kind of everybody a little bit of something that they want. I know we can't please everybody, but I guess that would be something I would ask if administration, if the other board members were willing to, I guess, go along with that we can figure something out here in the next few days, or figure out how we can make it work. Even though I'm hoping this is a short time, but you never know. But I do want to say before my computer starts cutting out that I do appreciate what you're saying about the teacher shortage, and I guess that's a piece that I'm considering on my vote tonight. So I appreciate you listening to me.
Anything else from anyone?
I guess I have a quick question.
Okay.
So if we remove our internal numbers from it, and we're seeing that our teacher quarantines and our teacher positives are continuing to increase along the path of what the community spread is, should we not then try to find a way to give ourselves as many possible options to continue in-person school, no matter what that looks like? Should we not be trying to do that and give ourselves as many possible options? Okay.
I agree. I think it took us, 3.5 weeks to move from H2 to H1 for scheduling, parental concern, teacher concern. I'm not sure why we're not doing that same thing right now. Why don't we say, hey, on the 24th, we're going to meet on the 19th. We're going to reevaluate all of our stats, preparing people for possibly the 24th or coming back from Thanksgiving break, versus throwing them into it come Monday when the teachers don't have time to plan, change their schedules. Parents don't have time to plan or change their schedules. This is going to create a hardship on a lot of people, and we're asking them to do it overnight. So, it's Wednesday. We're asking them to start on Monday. So I just think, the courtesy that was shown before is not being shown now. And I think this is going to be very, very hard on parents and kids and teachers.
But would you stipulate to that if the numbers continue in their current trajectory, that this is a necessary function?
Yeah, it's going to have to be. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, Dr. Hlopnik, are any of our 11 buildings at a breaking point or bright line where they cannot function at this point in time, or they are a handful of absences among staff away from that type of scenario.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a every morning scenario.
For all 11 or for,
That's why we're here tonight, you guys,
well,
the special meeting.
Yeah.
And I have one comment to make. Everyone lashing out in anger. And I shouldn't have to keep saying this, but all of you out there lashing out in anger and venom, by all means, we have a school board election a year from now. And I highly suggest, because you know so
Are you
much,
talking about emails?
that you run for school board, because trying to satisfy everyone in a pandemic is an incredible experience. And we all do it because it's fun, especially me. So please make sure you file your papers this summer. Can I call the question?
Everybody done talking? Looks like it. I
Well,
think you're
just-
good, Lori. Oh,
Well,
Rick's got-
to answer Tom's good point, I think the reason we gave him 3.5 weeks or a long time was our proposal, if you remember, was to finish the first
yeah, get
quarter,
through the quarter.
so the grading purposes and conferences would be smoother. I just want to remind you, that's.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying, I'm just saying it would be courteous now to say.
Now they're seeing Polk County might double in the next 2 weeks, and we're kind of reacting to what we're all hearing. Just my take.
Well, things were getting better at that point. Things are getting
Yeah.
much worse at this point in terms.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
It feels like we need to react more quickly to things getting worse. Whereas when things are getting better, we can plan it out more. And our teachers have done hybrid too. They did it for the whole first quarter. The ones that I've talked to said no problem switching by Monday. And that might not be universal, but I think on that side, they're looking good. From a parent standpoint, yeah, it's a struggle. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it's a flip flop. I
you
think
have-
that
you
for the
have to-
teachers, it's a downshift, but for the parents, it's gonna be
right.
rough.
And we have to acknowledge that this isn't easy and it's
Right.
And to Lori's point, which is always on point, some of us may still try to run for reelection next fall.
Yeah.
I hope.
Some of us may
That's fair.
not and leave opportunities. for some of them.
really easy to say that when you don't have to run for reelection next year, Lori. So
I'm not up next year. I just
I
got
know, that's why
elected.
it's so easy for you to say.
I,
Some of
and
us are.
And yes, sorry. I just really think that the rudeness that's out there online is inappropriate when these 7 board members are doing everything they can to help our district and support our staff and our students and our parents and our administration. And sometimes the lashing out isn't necessary or helpful in any way. Please run for school board. I look forward to working with you next fall.
Extremely well-paid position.
Yes, you make a ton of money doing
I
this.
got a coffee cup. Thank you, Leah Morris. That was way back when. And then somebody stole it. So other than that,
All right.
very lucrative.
People always call and thank you every day. That's all. I
Yes,
say.
that's
Thank
right.
you.
And I did appreciate it. Somebody actually sent, I got a couple of thank you. That was nice.
Yeah.
So those are fun to get. They're rare, but nice.
Can I vote?
No.
She already,
Yeah. So we have
she
like,
already called the question, so it's an open one, but
It's gonna be on our next week's agenda,
Yeah.
what's that?
the return to learn.
Yeah. we're
well,
just
but by
going
then
to
we'd already
1
returned
week.
is what he's saying.
I mean,
Is everybody done? I hesitate. I'm not gonna really do a call the question vote, but if everybody's done, we'll be done and have in vote.
Then let's be done.
Okay. All right. Do we have Karen or Kevin still pinch hitting?
President Fisher, I am here.
Okay.
Board, I appreciate you as well.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Powell,
It's nice to hear.
Go ahead and do your thing.
sorry, Powell,
yes,
Handy,
Are you kidding me? Andy.
Yes.
All right.
Slings,
Who?
you.
Slings,
Yes.
Nave,
Oh,
Fisher,
Yes.
Crab,
yes.
Corral.
no.
All right. I think that's, let me look at the agenda here. I think that's it. Anything else? Take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.